In this video, which is part 1 of a 3-part series, I'm going to be talking about how we're going to help our child learn to focus and stop being distracted when it's time to sit down and write. Hi, I'm Abigail, and I help moms with distracted kids unlock your children's focus. And you are in the right place if you have a distracted preschooler about 3 to 6 years old. So I've been talking a lot to parents who have been sending me DMs on Instagram asking me, hey, what do I do if my child refuses to sit down and write? They're distracted, they cannot focus, and they seem to be running all over the place. Or when I give them an activity to do, they sit and scribble a couple of lines and they run off. So this video series is for you if you have a child like that and you're getting exasperated because you don't know what to do to get him or her to sit down. And I'll show you with few simple tweaks, we can get our child to focus on an activity. So in today's video, I'm just going to be concentrating on understanding the child. So we're going to be answering questions like, why is the child distracted? When is the child distracted? Who makes the child distracted? What is the child distracted with? And how can we help the child not to be so distracted? So let me start off with a story of control. When I started off as a mom, I knew I was headed down the tiger mom path. Having done well enough in the system and being a trained MOE teacher, I knew what it takes to do well in the system. And I would say it's not a walk in the park. And I was constantly discussing with my husband, oh dear, do you think we should save money to send him or her to this enrichment class? I was anticipating I would have to be the fierce mom. I would have to be the one who's pushing my kids to go for this enrichment, that tuition class, in order to keep ahead of the education arms race, right? I kind of figured that to do that, I would have to be the bad guy, and it was my way or the highway, and I wanted absolute control over how my kids perform and what they did to get there. And on hindsight and on reflection, it's always about this sense of control, which is, of course, having kids is the worst idea if you're a control freak like me. Like, try telling your toddler, like, I want you to nap now. Sorry, mom, not happening. But one day in church, I had a 180-degree turn when I knew God was speaking to me. The verse was, do not sacrifice your children on the altar of Molech, in Leviticus 18:21. But I knew exactly what God was saying to me. In my context, he was saying, do not sacrifice your children on the altar of academic excellence. And I knew God was saying and giving me a warning not to go down this tiger mom path, controlling my kids' future or whatever it is that I wanted them to do. She's now 11 and she continues to school me that I have absolutely no control. I can make her do things against her will, but the price is heavy. The cost of this is my relationship with her. And this need for control, like for me as a mom, as a parent, as an adult, and for my child as somebody who has to learn how to take control of her own decisions and make those right decisions, this need for control is universal and applies across all ages. And yes, even for our preschoolers. And that is why you have all these fights with them, right? Like, wear your shoes. No. Wear your slippers. No, I want to wear shoes now. It's really all about that sense of, can I choose what I want to do? And will mommy let me make those decisions, as bad an idea as it may seem? It boils down to this idea of respectful parenting. It focuses on collaboration rather than authority, respect rather than punishment. It's treating your child just the way you want to be treated, with respect, with choices, with freedom to make those choices, with empathy and with connection. So respectful parenting, translated in the context of teaching and learning, is for us to observe and see what the child is interested in doing, in learning, and wanting to achieve, and we try to meet their learning needs and to empower them to learn. The child already has his own personality, has his own interests, has his own roadmap of learning, has his or her own mission, calling, purpose. And we as the adult are not controlling the child, making him be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, but really is to come alongside with the child and to give the child all the resources and all the knowledge and wisdom to try to help the child get to the next step, to what he wants to achieve. But right from birth, every child comes with his own blueprint and timetable for learning and development, and Montessori calls these the sensitive periods. So through her observations of the children that she was taking care of, she realized that every child goes through intense interest in particular sets of skills associated with the sensitive period. So for example, in the 0 to 4 years of age, the child is very, very interested in developing his gross motor movements, from flipping over the mat, from supporting his neck, from crawling, from sitting, from standing up and walking, running, climbing. That's all the child is interested in doing and learning and mastering and perfecting. And that is why your child cannot sit still for long periods of time to do that writing work, because from a child 0 to 4 years of age, and I say this in average terms because some kids enter the sensitive periods early or later, some kids leave the sensitive periods earlier or later. So the age is really just a rough gauge. So he's more interested in catching a ball, throwing a frisbee, riding the bike, climbing the jungle gym. Anything that involves gross motor movement, he'll be all for it. But anything that has nothing to do with that gross motor movement, he may find that there's very little sustained interest in it. And we don't have to worry, because as long as we give them ample opportunity to perfect and master those skills, they will eventually master those skills, and then they will be bored of it, and then they will move on to the next thing that catches their interest. So back to this question that a lot of you have been asking, my child's distracted when it's time to sit down and write. What are we going to do about it? The short answer, and I will speak more about this in the next 2 videos, there are 2 things we can do. Number 1 is to hold back the writing and all the activities that require the child to sit down, and wait for the child to enter into the sensitive periods for doing those activities. They will get there when it's time for them to get there. And the other things that we can consider doing is to see what other sensitive periods the child is in, and we try to combine what the child is interested in with the skills that we want him to learn. So for example, if he's in his sensitive period for movement, can we do something like letter hopscotch, where instead of writing the number on the hopscotch, we write alphabets instead, and then we call out the alphabet and we ask the child to, can you jump to the S sound? Can you jump to the P sound? Can you jump to the K sound? After we've written the hopscotch in chalk on the ground, we can get the child to use a spray bottle to squirt the letters away. Through that, he's kind of doing pre-writing. He's doing an activity through gross motor movement to wipe the letters away. Or you can give him a pail with a brush, and he has to like clean the letters away by tracing over the letters with a wet brush. So what does this look like to be in that sensitive period? So this is my daughter at 2 years old. She's my youngest daughter. She's now 4 years old. She was up and down and couldn't sit still for 30 seconds at all. I think this picture was taken during the lockdown periods about 2 years ago. I think our neighbors probably thought things were so bad in my house that this child was trying to like do a jailbreak. And you'd think, with my knowledge in child psychology, in Montessori, in teaching, and this was my 3rd time being a mom going through these same milestones, I wouldn't be worried at all. But guess what? We all worry. And I did worry. And I remember distinctly thinking, oh dear, what if this girl is the one who turns out that she can never sit still and she would just be on the move all the time? Well, how am I going to get her to sit and learn? And so I'm not blaming you for worrying, because sometimes, even with all our knowledge, we forget, and we need reminders. We need others alongside us on the same journey to remind us, to assure us that, hey, we're doing well, we're on the right track. So for us who have early bloomers, those who enter the sensitive periods early, no problem, nothing to worry at all, right? For our kids who are a bit of the later bloomers, slightly later, maybe even if it's on time, and we get worried because we compare with kids who are early bloomers, or maybe they're just forced into it, right? And they start bragging that their kids can do certain things earlier than my kid. And that's where all these comparison feelings comes up. It's an ongoing struggle, and I concur with you that it's very, very tough to hold our horses, to be patient, to wait for the child. But I can totally assure you it is worth it. It is worth it because we know when that child enters that sensitive period for learning, she is there. She is absolutely passionate. She is totally all in without us forcing, without us nagging, without us spoiling that relationship. And we see our role and we become more and more confident. We build our own confidence to trust in our own child, that he or she knows what he's doing and that God is taking care of them, that God knows exactly when it's the right time for them to learn certain things. And we just need to trust in the child and trust in God that everything is good. So in times like these, I encourage you to find your own community of like-minded parents who will hold us back, who will assure us that we have to, in fact, it's not a passive kind of holding and waiting. We have to actively fight our every worry and our fear to protect our child's space and time and not push them into something that they're not ready for, so that the child can enter into the sensitive period on his or her own timing, on her own terms. What happens when your child is denied learning opportunities in the sensitive period or pushed into a sensitive period before he or she is ready? It's exactly what my parents have been asking me about. They act up, they are disinterested, they run around, they try to do something else that actually interests them. And that may look like disruption to the class. It's not that they don't want to sit still or that they are naughty. It's that they are in a sensitive period for movement, and when they don't meet those needs, then they are restless, they act up. And that may look like boredom and disengagement with the activity when the child lacks the motivation and interest to do the work well. Or that may look like an inability to try and when they just say they don't know. Or that may look like frustration with tears and clinginess to you because they cannot do the activity. They cannot do something that is beyond them. The challenge is way beyond them, and they feel tiny, they feel small, they feel helpless. And so they are always asking you, like, "Mommy, can you sit down with me to do this? I don't know how to do this. Please do this for me." These are some of the possible outcomes. You can have, number one, a very compliant child, and she will do whatever you ask her to do. She'll try her very, very darn best. What she learns is that she becomes a passive learner, and she is always waiting for your instruction. What else to do next? "Mommy, you tell me what to do." And she doesn't learn or practice how to trust in her own learning intuition or lean into what she is passionate or wants to learn. The second case scenario is that this child is distracted or disruptive. And I'm thinking maybe the silver lining if you have a distracted child is that is your child giving you a signal that something is off. It's a warning sign to us to kind of look deeper into it as to why your child is distracted and how can we help meet his learning needs better. And the third child is probably the worst kind, really. The worst case that we can ever get is a discouraged and defeated child who learns that she is not smart, she's always failing because she's always doing something that is beyond her or level of maturation. And as a teacher who has taught hundreds of students before, I can tell you, I can teach the ones who have gaps in their knowledge. We'll just go back to page 1 of the textbook. Let's start from scratch. But the hardest kinds of children to teach are those who have already given up, who have already written themselves off, who already think that they are stupid. No matter how much work they put in, they will never get there. And those are the hardest to teach because we are not dealing with teaching concepts. We are dealing with building up the child's confidence. And so I know what you're thinking because I've thought those same thoughts before. If we have a distracted child, if we have a child who won't sit down and do the work, doesn't mean our child is lazy, our child is unmotivated, our child is naughty. Not at all. Our child is not all of those, not naughty, not lazy, not unmotivated. Our child is just not engaged with the right developmental activities. He needs the right activities to engage him to learn what he wants to learn right now. And these activities are not just to entertain or distract him, but the right activities which will meet his learning needs in a timely manner. And when he gets that, you will see that transformation. He will transform from being distracted to focused, and your child will become calmer, your child will become more joyful, your child will become more confident, and it is very apparent. You can see it. So yes, I have a free resource that you can download today. I'll put the link in the description below. So this video, we've been talking more about the child and what the sensitive periods of the child are going through. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about the parent and what are some skills and attitudes required of us as a parent. And I'm going to leave the third one blank, but I think you can guess it already. And that is where we will go into more strategies to solve the problem of how am I going to get my child to sit down and start writing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time. Bye.